Okay. All right. Did you do it? We are live again. This is segment 13. This is the last one.
That's fun.
Last
For now.
one. Right for now. Yep. So, like you and I were talking, I'll get the books written and published, and then we will redo these. And meanwhile, you'll be making progress with your kids.
So it'll be fun to see how things have shifted.
Yep, things are changing. Yep. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
And you're changing everything.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful thing. So now we're going to talk about speech and language development.
Okay.
And as you know, one of your children has some language development issues.
Right.
Yeah, so doesn't enunciate the words correctly, some things like that. And we're going to be dealing with that developmentally with the program. We will write a developmental therapy program, and then every day you can do these therapies. In fact, you're doing some with the eyes right now.
Right. And the sequential.
Sequential processing, yeah, that's a big deal.
Yep.
And even for language development, that's a big deal. Because you were doing phonetics and frustrating the bejeebers of this kid.
Right.
Because he wasn't getting it.
Right.
Now, how old's the kid?
Well, I mean, he's 10 now.
10. And having trouble with phonetics, which is a part of language development.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that he wasn't developing there was because he couldn't process enough things in his brain to deal with concepts. The concepts with language. A lot of concepts with language. A lot of concepts.
It's interesting with the sequential processing, he still can't really do 6 things. But he's starting to. He can do 5 pretty consistently, and once in a while he's getting 6. And with his reading, it's interesting because the flashcards and memorizing has really helped his reading. But now he's starting to read, and when he gets to words he doesn't know, instead of just getting mad, he's starting to think phonetically and sounding things out, which he's never been able to do.
Right.
So it's all interconnected, and it's really interesting.
So we have a success. Right. So this is a kid they say keep alive.
Yeah.
Just keep him alive. When he gets older, maybe he'll be out of your home, maybe he won't. This kid's going to be a great success.
Yeah.
And that's what you parents out there need to do. The developmental problems, they're just it. They're challenges. They're not a death sentence.
Right.
And that's what we're finding out. So, language development, how does it start? What's the first thing you hear from a baby? Yeah! Right, I've done a lot of live births. And when you do there's a procedure of birth that they have at the hospitals, and then we have what's called the event of childbirth. And Nurse Nikki's watching tonight, and she helped with the last natural birth we did. And she heard that first birth cry. A little weak at first because the child came out backwards. So had a kind of a rough start, but it didn't take but a few seconds. And the baby's coming back. That's the first thing you want to hear. Wow. If there's no wow, they write that against the APGAR score. So it's a birth cry. And when you have the event of childbirth, you don't have an angry child. They're born, they go like, what? What is new here? And instead of being angry, if you take the Pitocin, give it to mommy, if you do the saddle block, if you do all these procedures, you come out with an angry baby. And I was lecturing some nurses, I think Nikki was at that one, a lecture in one of the hospitals, in the neonatal unit. And afterwards, the nurses were going like, oh yeah, old Dr. So-and-so uses more pit than anybody else, and his babies are always angry. So angry birth cry is not the best thing. The child's born, they're surprised. And it's not like in the movies. Back in the 50s, they hold the child up and spank their butt. That's not how it works either. That's great for Hollywood, but the child is born to have a birth cry. That's the first thing. If they don't have a birth cry, we've got trouble. So the next thing that they develop, and they kind of develop it pretty darn quick, is an appropriate cry to sensing pain. Like we did a circumcision on the 8th day of this child, and he felt just a little bit of pain and went to sleep. I mean, he was barely awake for the procedure, but he did sense a little pain with the cutting of the foreskin, and then he was done. So they develop that appropriate sensation for pain. If they don't develop that, if they don't react to it appropriately, we have developmental problems. And it can go either way. You've seen the kid that comes in, and you can't even hit them like that, and they go, ow! Right? Or the one that gets hit with a freight train, gets bounced down the tracks, gets up, says, that was fun.
Sometimes it's the same kid.
Sometimes it's the same kid, yes. Right. So now we've got some real things to think about.
Yeah.
Which is it? Is he hypo pain or hyper pain? Well, regardless, they need to cry in response to pain stimulation. And then that occurs right after birth and up to 3 months. And then they start to develop meaningful tonality. They actually tell you, hey, I got to pee. They do. But we say, oh, shut up, kid. We got a diaper on you. Just go in the diaper. That's what we tell them. But they're going like, but I've got neonatal reflexes. I can't pee unless you pick me up and put your fingers on both sides of my spine. Because if you do that, my little legs will come up into a squatting position, and I'll block my bladder. I'll empty my bowels. And I'm telling you, I need to do that. And we say, oh, just be quiet, kid. Go in your diaper. That's why we put a diaper on. So we actually train our children. They're telling us, they have meaningful language. They're telling us, I gotta go. But they're telling us, I'm hungry. They're telling us, I'm tired. Or I'm happy. I'm itchy. I don't know. If they could just tell us exactly what they want.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
So that's between 0 to 3 months. They develop meaningful language. Then, after that, from 3 to 6 months, they start to coo and babble. That's the real fun part. Where you coo at the child and they coo. Where you make noises and they noise. When you jump up and down, they jump up and down.
Right.
I was taught by a speech pathologist about language, and this was a university professor. Interesting thing about this guy is he had a stutter. A speech pathologist professor who had a stutter. But you put him in the room with the baby, and he would have a conversation with the baby. He'd be making all the facial gestures. He'd be jumping up and down excited, and they'd be oohing and awing at each other. And he would have that baby totally engaged immediately. So 0 to 3 months, they have language. We try to teach them our language. Actually, we dumb our language down to theirs. We go, oh, pretty baby, cute baby. We get the little baby talk thing going.
Yeah. It's cute.
It's cute. No, they're just too cute. And that's not a horrible thing.
Yeah.
Not a horrible thing to do, but we also need to have real conversations with these kids, too.
Right.
That is some good tea. What is it?
This is called Evening in Missoula.
Wow, tell me about it, because I can taste sarsaparilla.
Yeah, it's got sarsaparilla and a bunch of herbs, and it's a loose leaf tea we discovered at a tea shop in Missoula, but we found a place to get it here, and we love it.
It's great.
If you like root beer, I think of it as root beer in a tea form.
Yes.
So.
Phew, that's nice. Okay, back on track. 3 to 6 months, we're starting to coo and babbling. 6 to 12 months, so you get more engagement. After about a year, or hopefully sooner, they're beginning to mimic. Dad, mama, me, whatever. You give them a two-syllable bounce, and they will give it back to you. Dad or mama, Usually it may or may not mean anything to them. It's called echolalia often at that point. And they're trying to make associations and we're saying, oh, there's Dada, there's Dada. And then they're going like, okay, every time Dada comes in the picture, mommy says, there's Dada. So eventually they're going to get it. They get excited when Dada shows up, whether or not they know it's Dada.
They know.
But that's part of language is putting it together. That's Dada. You show them a picture of Grandma and Grandpa, they get excited. You say, Mimi and Dado, or whatever you call them, the pet name. That's Grandma and Grandpa. And the baby's starting to associate language with things. You can take your 6-month-old baby, you can take flashcards, silhouette flashcards. Like you can order them online, you can get one of a duck and you say, duck, train, goat, dish,
This is a black and white
spoon,
silhouette.
yes, black and white silhouettes. They don't have to have a bunch of detail. For the first few weeks of life, the baby won't see much detail, but they will see algorithms. So it's okay to start with those silhouette ones. And you can teach them the association every time they see that duck silhouette. It's duck. Pretty soon they're going to try to say duck. By the time they're a year old, they're trying to associate these words. They usually mimic about 20 words at first. That's a developmental plateau. Where they mimic 20 words. And it won't be perfect. It'll be cute. So brace yourself.
Yeah.
And then from 12 to 18 months old, they begin expressing about 200 words. 200 plus words. It depends on how much you work with them, what kind of opportunities are they getting, especially if there's older siblings. There will be a competition. A lot of homeschool parents, they have their 8-year-olds
Serious competition.
right there with their 6-year-olds, and the 6-year-olds doing the 8-year-old work. A lot of competition. They learn a lot from their siblings. If it's the firstborn, generally they don't have quite the opportunity unless we make that opportunity. We can read to them, show them pictures, help them make the connection. But here's the other thing. While all this is developing, they need to be able to see it. If they can't see it, like one young son you've got, they have trouble forming the words because those mirror imaging neurons, the mirror neurons in the brain, it's the monkey see, monkey do neurons, some of the first ones to light up. They see how you form your words. And the baby's macular division develops from the distance of mommy's face to the breast. That's about where it develops. So the best way to do speech and language therapy is, guess what? About that far from their face. And you need to make sure they can see you. When we tested your young son, we gave him the kaleidoscope. What did he do?
I put it to the wrong eye first,
Took it to the left eye.
and then he took it to the side to use the peripheral.
Right, so he's looking through the peripheral. So if you're trying to speak to him right in front of his nose, he's not going to see how you form your words. So this is part of speech and language development. He's got to be able to hear it. You know, I have some hearing impediments from post-polio syndrome, whatever. You know, shooting too many guns, loud rock and roll in the 70s. And when I pronounce words, sometimes I mispronounce them because I've read them, but I have not heard them appropriately. Even in college courses, if I do not hear the word, I don't speak it right. But I read the word, I put my own enunciation on it, my own pronunciation. So if your child is mispronouncing words, that's a clue. You might not be hearing them correctly. So we got to have clean input to get clean output. All right? So they're expressing 200 words. 18 months, 24 months, they're starting to put couplets together. And the first two couplets they put together is don't want or I want. You know, they put that together neurologically. I want and I don't want.
Right.
And then they're putting two phrase words together, couplets. You know, baby up, baby up. And they go, yeah, baby up. They lift their arms, they make it easy for you. They're associating the language
Right.
with meaning
Right.
and giving an appropriate response. But they start putting couplets together. So they're using two words, couplets. That's when they're 2 years old. How many things can they process when they're 2 years old?
Two.
Two. And they call that the terrible twos, and it comes back to I want and I don't want. Right? Does that make sense?
No and mine.
Yeah, right. So when they're 10 years old and they're emotional like a 2 year old, it's all I want, I don't want. Check the processing. They're processing on a lower level, you're going to have a younger neurological response. Back at the very first session, we talked about 3 ways to document how old your child is.
Right.
Chronology, how many weeks, how many months, how many years from birth. Neurologically, we're going to go by how much can they process. 2 things, 3 things, 5 things, 6 things. We'll cover that a little more in a minute. And then the other one is the academic development. So if your 10-year-old is doing second grade work, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We want all our 10-year-olds to be doing 6th, 7th, 8th grade work, right?
Right.
Really, there's no reason they shouldn't be. The only reason they're not is because of us. Because we have not provided them the opportunities. We have not seen how to reach that child, which you're beginning to see. You have 3 young children still at home, homeschooling, lots of opportunity. And all 3 of these have their different snowflake developmental challenges. We're going to find them and we're going to fix them. We are finding them. We are fixing them.
Yeah.
Right, so something that happens at the age of 2 is they go why. Why?
Oh,
Why?
why?
Everything's why. 2 and 3 years old, why? 3-year-old, why? Everything's why. Why is the sky blue? Why do cars go fast? Why? Why does Daddy sleep in?
His daddy's tired.
Daddy's tired. And something we want to look for too, neurologically, is how far they develop, and then if they have a regression. And language is one of the biggest things people notice with regression. The kid is doing his couplets, using 2-word phrases, associating language with meaningful responses. Get a vaccine. And they have a regression. Well, the kid was talking with 2-word responses, and now we've got nothing. We can barely get the kid to pick up a spoon. And we say, pick up the spoon. And you can actually document the time of regression in so many parents. Thousands of parents I've seen with their developmentally challenged kids. So many of them say, well, 18 months old, we had our shots. And little Johnny fell backwards. It happened that afternoon. Within a week, and some kids regress all the way back to screaming, all the way back to birth in their language development. I've had them in my clinic. I've had the screamers. That's all they can do is scream. That is not backwards. They went from a normal child not backwards.
And all that, you know, say the reaction to the vaccine.
And quite often, Vaccines contain a lot of poisons. These poisons knock the children back neurologically. The best way to get a lifetime immunity of chickenpox is
Chickenpox.
the chickenpox. Same thing with measles.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, everyone used
so
to
much the reason kids are injured from the measles is because they're vitamin A deficient. They're vitamin C deficient. That's why in third world countries we have so much problems with measles deaths, measles injuries. Um, it shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be a rite of passage. It builds our immune systems. A healthy immune system is a challenged immune system. You don't give it anything to do that's real. So if you give it the fake thing to do, it doesn't develop the true immunity. So then your kid who had 2 rounds of chickenpox shots still gets the chickenpox.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because they needed 3 rounds of chickenpox? Or they do 2 rounds of the MMR. Actually, it's a quadrivalent vaccine now. They do 2 rounds of that, but it's not working. We're having a horrible measles outbreak in the United States right now. They're calling it horrible. If your child's not vitamin A deficient, congratulations. They're immune for life, and they won't be as susceptible to other diseases.
Yeah.
But it's not the vaccinations that's the problem so much as it's the adjuvants, the aluminum, the polysorbate, the different DNAs they put in. There's 3 or 4 DNAs in some of the shots. Anywhere from cow to dog to horse to human DNA in these vaccines. It's not good. Our kids are becoming allergic to peanuts because they started using peanut oil in the vaccines. But anyway, I'm getting off on one.
Getting off on a rabbit trail.
Oh boy. So a lot of parents, they see these regressions at vaccines. They intersect with vaccinations. And some of you parents might not have put this together. Now, generally, a kid will get knocked backwards, and then they'll come back. Like they get knocked back one step, and they come 2 steps forward. But not every child. So it's the exceptions. That's the problem. Right, so we talked a little bit about the age of 6 and speech and language development. And reading and the expression of reading is part of language output. If they cannot read on a 7th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade level, they're going to have trouble functioning in life as a normal human in our society today. It's not that they can't function, but they're going to have to do adaptive function things to cover for their life. But at the age of 6, they should be able to process how many things? 6. And then what happens at 6? They can now process concepts. In some of language, a lot of language is concepts, especially when it comes to phonetics. That's why your child is having trouble with phonetics. He was functioning on a level of 4. And he was emotionally, how old would you say?
Maybe 2 or 3 something. Well, he's really jumping.
Yeah, he's come, boy, this kid is coming.
Yeah, he's coming
Fast.
really
We've been doing these segments. This is number 13. 13 weeks. And have you been faithful every day, all day?
No, actually, we probably haven't.
Right. So you're getting the results of what you're putting in. It could go faster. I'm not too concerned. I'm so happy you've got progress.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled you have progress. This kid is thrilled. He's got progress. This is a different child. Emotionally, he's coming along at 6. They act like a 6-year-old. They function like a 6-year-old. They can start doing math because your digital math, your numeral math, is numeral math. It's a concept. And you're
It is
going,
interesting when we take big jumps forward, there is that regression though often, not just in speech, but we see it in, he'll all of a sudden he'll get something, he'll jump way up, and then something will get upset about something and he'll kick back. But he doesn't go all the way back.
Right.
So it seems like there's a lot of this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
it's like slacking the toe rope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, slacking the toe rope. Guys will get that for sure. Some of you gals that help tell the card. Age of 6, huge for language development. And when do we put them in school? When they're 6. We get them in preschool when they're 5, sometimes 4. They could already have all this done before then if we give them the opportunity. Every baby's born a potential genius. We're the problems. We're the ones who have to learn how to teach them. It's all on us. It's not them. We cannot change. We cannot blame the child. Can't blame the school systems. Can't blame the teachers. We miss it or we don't. And if you've missed it, now you're watching this, you're going to get some of it. All right, so age of 6 is big. The other thing is hemispheric dominance. And this was session 2. We talked about where in language lives. We've got a right-eyed child, right ear child, right hand, right foot. The dominant hemisphere will be the left because there's a crossover in the brain. Language lives in the dominant hemisphere. Right? So if your child is left-handed, should be left foot, left eye, left ear, just put them in a mirror. The dominant hemisphere would be the right hemisphere. And that's where language development lives. So language is in the dominant hemisphere. We're going to talk about the right-handed child. And by the time they're 2 or 3, they're deciding which hand they want.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often when they're deciding which hand they want, they stutter.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that with your guy?
You know,
Stuttering.
I didn't really notice that. I mean, he stuttered a lot when he first came to me.
When they're trying to pick their hand dominance, they'll be some stuttering. Not to worry. Just let them naturally pick which hand. We used to be about 3% of our population was right-handed. I mean, 3% was left-handed. 97% was right-handed. Now it's switched a little bit more towards, we've got about 11% left-handers.
Do you think that it's actually switched or just people are being pushed towards the right side?
Probably a little of both. A little of both. But the child naturally picks their hand, then there should be right eye, right ear, right foot, follow. Your guy wasn't. So he was left eye dominant, and we know why, because he couldn't see out of the right eye.
Right.
But his vision checked normal. Right? The optometrist, what they say,
20/20, you're good to go.
20/20, you're good to go. Yep. But he couldn't see what was in front of his face. That, my friend, is the formation of dyslexia. When they can't see the correct outline of the letters, the numerals, they have trouble with math, they're adding the wrong columns, they're trying to read, they're skipping lines, they're inventing words. And they hate reading. Not only that, they're taking the reading through the left eye, in this case, and it's going to the emotional hemisphere of the brain instead of the logical hemisphere. So naturally, the output is going to be emotional output. And his language output, when you're trying to get him to read, was very emotional. Now it's he's so excited to read.
Yeah.
Blew his mom away. Comes up to me a couple of weeks ago with, "This is my favorite book." The kid didn't like to read a day in his life before this.
Yeah.
Now here it is, and his expressive responses to reading are now logical. They're positive as we're getting him switched over to the dominant hemisphere as he's starting to be able to see better through his right eye. And you just barely worked with this kid.
Yeah.
Barely worked with him. One of his goals is to be able to catch a football with something besides his nose.
Yeah, his nose or his face.
Right. Because if you can't see out of both eyes clearly, you can't track, you can't catch, you can't read. When you're processing things through the subdominant eye, everything turns emotional. And as soon as they see something, they filter through the emotional side. So here's how dyslexia works. When we're talking about language output, you want the kid to read. He can read, but you want him to give you accurate reading output. So the kid's dyslexic. They're saying everything backwards, or they're inventing words. That's one of the big things. If they can't see the word, they can almost see it. Their brain says, "I bet that's the word cat." It wasn't the word cat; it's the word cup. But they couldn't see it clearly, and their brain is doing its fastest to adapt your function, tell you what is that. So they invent the word, they put it in there, cup, and it was cat, or cat, something similar but different.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. If they're supposed to be taking their reading through the right eye, through the dominant hemisphere, where logic is, where expressive language lives, now they can bring it out from the logical hemisphere. If they're taking it in through their subdominant eye, the right-handed kid is supposed to be right-eyed, but they're left-eye dominant, then it goes to the right side of their brain, their subdominant hemisphere, where emotions are, where music lives, but where's language? Language is over here, right?
Right.
So the brain receives it over here and says, but we have to speak, so it throws it over to this side. As it crosses the corpus callosum, gets turned upside down and backwards, comes out dyslexic. How many secretaries I've dealt with? 30 years with many of my companies where you don't know if they've given you the correct phone number. They write down a message and the phone number, you know it's going to be wrong somewhere. So you have them repeat the number back to the customer several times, and it comes back with a couple scribbles. Now hopefully you got the right number. Well, they were right-handed, but they were left-handed. Okay? So, they're trying to write with the right hand. They should be listening with their right ear, so it goes to logic. And their manual function is in their dominant hemisphere, so they're trying to write. So if it's coming in here, it goes to logical, goes to manual function, they can write it.
But it's easier to hold the phone that way.
It's easier to hold the phone that way. Yes, exactly. So they hold the phone with the left ear. And you tell them 555-7643. And they hear 555-7643. Over here, turn it around backwards, 755 or 555-7463 is what they write. Because it gets turned upside down and backwards. Where all they have to do is hold this phone like this, cross over, right like that. If they're using a headset, it's to listen to the dominant ear, which should be the dominant ear.
Right.
They're right-handed, should be hearing through the right ear. If you're trying to teach a child, they need to be hearing it right here. If you're trying to teach them language and teach them how words sound, it needs to be right here.
So in doing therapy with kids with those kind of with the hearing, an improper dominance for their hearing, normally it's like a little earplug, force them to the opposite side.
Now we're back to segment 3, I think.
Right.
Talk about the caltrains.
Yep.
So if this is the ear they're preferring, it's got more cows going down the trail. It's got more neurons firing. So this is going to be a nice, fat, healthy neural pathway. This one's not going to be so big. So if you stick an earplug in here during the daytime, this one gets muffled. This one gets all the input. And this one builds a nice, fat neural pathway. Same with the eyes. The left eye is the one that's dominant, but it should be the right eye. Then you might get some fashion glasses with some scotch tape over one side, the left side.
Yeah.
I was taking my grandkids shooting. Maybe a year ago, a little over a year, and one of my granddaughters holding the rifle like this, trying to look down the barrel with her left eye.
Yeah.
So, I took some duct tape, put it over her eye, her left eye for the eyeglass shields, and she was the sharpest shooter of all the grandkids.
Yeah.
With a
Just have to
22 rifle.
use the right eye.
She had to use the right eye. And we talked about this with the Army. If you're going to go enlist in the Army, and you organize your brain.
Yep.
You march, you Army crawl, you use the right eye for shooting. They come back organized. And we go, they grew up. Oh my gosh, look at them. The judge said they were going to go to jail. All the neighbors said this kid's headed for no good. And the Army straightened them out. Well, let's straighten them out when they're 3 or 4 years old. Right, or 10 years old. Let's get ahead of this. And then their language will straighten out. Hemisphere, which hemisphere are they using? And if it gets stored in the wrong hemisphere, it gets brought out backwards. So, one of the biggest things about language development is when you have a stutter. I told you I had a speech pathologist professor who stuttered. All of you guys who are our age and you gals, who is Mel Tillis? Tell me about Mel Tillis. What's so famous about Mel Tillis?
Stuttered terribly, but he could sing with no stutter beautifully.
Stutters terribly. I saw him on the Dukes of Hazzard episode a few weeks ago. Stuttered so bad. It was horrible. Mel Tillis. Google it. And then listen to his music. Clear as a bell. It is beautiful. But where's the music? Music is in the subdominant hemisphere. This professor of mine had mixed dominant in his ears. And I told him, I said, Professor, you fix your stutter. And he said, well, that's just ridiculous. That's about how he said it. And I challenged him. And he did it. He put an earplug in his left ear. For 2 weeks, he was doing this, and his stutter went away. He was flabbergasted.
That's amazing.
This is a university professor, speech and pathology professor.
Right.
Stutter is a neural organization problem. It's a language output problem. So Mel Tillis, his ears are mixed up. Or I guess he's still alive. Somebody's going to have to Google it.
Yeah, I don't know if he is. I don't know.
Boy, I hope so. I sure like him.
So, comment if you would for a minute. Just on, I know this is a little rabbit trail, but you talked about music a number of times as being on the subdominant part of the brain, and yet music itself is made up of language, which is dominant side, and math, which is dominant side, and the tonal side of things, with frequencies, is the dominant. So you've got 3 elements that make up what music is. They're all dominant side items, and yet, so do they mix on the left side? Is that how how's the human mind process music? I'm just curious.
Well,
Maybe that's going too far off the field here, but
you use the whole brain.
right,
But we should have our dominant storage centers.
right,
So when you're doing the ABCs, You want to take it in through the right ear, the right eye, if they're the right-handed child. And you want to do it without singing. Why? Because language is in the dominant hemisphere, music is in the right, in this case, the subdominant hemisphere. And that's okay until you want to know what comes before the letter M. What comes before the letter M?
No.
How did you know that? Did you sing the song in your head?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay, good.
I forced myself not to.
Oh.
And then I knew it.
If you had to sing the song to get to the letter M, you see the if you had to sing it, it's because it's stored
It's a
in your
single
music
unit.
center, and the problem is it's inefficient. That's all. That's the problem. You want to be able to say the alphabet backwards? Well, if you learn it through the dominant ear, put it here. E Y X W D U T S R. It's all there.
Show off.
But if it's in the trivia side of your brain, then you got to pull out the whole block of trivia.
Right.
The left side of the brain has all the files, all the alphabetical order, everything's weighted and balanced. It's all set up in order. This side is chunks. Subdominant hemisphere is large chunks. That's where photographic memory lives.
In the subdominant.
And that's how I got through a lot of my college courses. I would read the book before class ever started. I would get the book, several weeks before class. I just burned through. Prolific reader. And I would stab it in my photographic memory.
Mm.
And I got reinforced during class time, but I didn't do my homework. Other kids hated it. They studied, and some of these kids would study for 12, 16, 18, 20 hours a week or more. I blew it off. And when it came to the test, I would pull out that big chunk, and the tests are usually somewhat sequential,
Right.
and you just pull out that big chunk and I'd read through the book. In my head, I go, it's like, okay, that's page 44. It's beginning of the chapter. It's probably the second paragraph down, third sentence in. How efficient is that? Not very efficient. It works, but it's adaptive function. You want it right here, we can have it right now, without having to pull the whole chunk in. That's one of my clinic partners, very left brain person, personalities left brain, Spock, and I'm very Jim left brain, or right brain. So you have that dichotomy, right brain, left brain personalities. Well, my brain looked like my desk. So one of my partners came in one time and he said, you have the notes for tomorrow night's lecture or something, or the notes on such and such a case, or whatever. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That was Monday. I was looking through. So it's going to be in the Monday section of the file. So I'm flipping through looking for the Monday stuff, and then I go, oh, here it is. If I couldn't find something, I could go into his office and I could say, remember that lecture we gave 4 weeks ago on the misdiagnosed ADD, ADHD? I seem to have left those notes at home, which was usually a lie, not from the line, but technically I could have left them at home, but I'm not sure. I don't know where they are. And so he'd wheel around, open up a file cabinet, pull out the notes. There they are. Go make a copy. I'd have to bring him his copy back. Because he was always organized. I would have to get that chunk and pull it out and go through it to find. But it's very inefficient. And with language, if the output you're wanting is in the subdominant hemisphere, it's going to get confused going to the dominant hemisphere before it comes out. But if you're going to sing it, okay, here's a classic example. You take the stroke victim.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the old person at church. The little old lady, sweet little old lady. Call her Mary Beth. Mary Beth has a stroke. And she's right side, won't work. And she lost her language. And now she's struggling. She can get around some. They bring her, they help her sit down in church. But she can't talk because the stroke is over here. Controls the right hand of the person. Controls the right leg. But also controls the language. So they get to the Amazing Grace chorus. She's clutching the edge of the pew, and she starts singing Amazing Grace with tears flowing down her face. Everybody around's going, Mary Beth, it's a miracle. And we're singing from the subdominant hemisphere in the area that wasn't injured. Music is in one hemisphere, language, the centers. Now these centers interact, they go quite up, but there is a dominant hemisphere. So, that's huge. Another thing about language is mobility. If you have mobility issues in a child, you're going to have speech and language difficulties. And we see that with continuum. Mobility problems, and we have speech and language problems. We have eye dominance problems, speech and language problems. We have macular central detail vision problems, and we have speech and language problems. Because the input is messed up, the output's messed up. As we're fixing these things, are you still doing the stretching exercises with them? Huge. Huge. We talked about, think of the session 5 we did, neonatal reflexes, with Nurse Nikki. Very interesting. And if they have,
When he's getting better at rolling.
yeah, right, the kid could roll over. Put him on his back, say roll over, he's like, well, how do I do this? Where the baby, as they're developing their reflexes, past their neonatal reflexes, they kick that right leg over and then the body follows in an even flow. And then they do the log roll to one side, they hit the TV, and then you have them roll back the other way, the left leg starts it, and they roll smoothly. And that affects speech and language output. Army 12 affects reading, it affects language output, it affects all kinds of things. It's just, you just can't separate one part of neurodevelopment. It's all interconnected. We use about 3% of our brain capacity, but we use 100% of our brain, pretty much. So, cranial nerves, this is another problem with the vaccine injury, is it causes inflammation. The baby that gets a vaccine and goes to screaming and won't stop screaming for 5 days, they're suffering a brain injury. We got a kitty cat walking through the window. And see kitty cat tail. That's just the neighborhood cat.
That's right. He just wanted to learn how her brain was developing.
So they get the vaccination, the mercury, the aluminum, the adjuvants, cause inflammation of the brain, they start screaming because they're having an active brain injury going on. Their fever spikes. Anything above 105, that's poison, folks. A fever 105 below, I don't worry about, personally. And I coach mommy and daddy through it. Let's get past it. The body's trying to burn something out. If they've had a vaccination, the fever spikes 106, they have seizures. They say it's just a febrile seizure. Was it?
Hmm.
Febrile seizures are generally from poison. So the cranial nerves, when the meninges are insulted, when the brain is injured with these chemicals, we're having some kids walk here tonight.
Hey, good night, buddy.
Good night. See you, buddy. So the cranial nerves, well, we talked about, I think last week, we talked about the meninges.
Right.
Meninges anchor the brain inside the skull. They connect in the cervical. They connect indirectly to every ligament of your body. You can have a tweak in the meninges, pulling the skull out of place, pulling against the cranial nerves, and now they can't perform their language function because the nerves won't work right. It's pinching the cranial nerve, so we need to look at that. Why is it pinched? We get rid of the pinch. I had a screamer one time. All she could do is scream. She could talk, but every word she said came out as a scream. And this was, I think, probably a 11-year-old little girl, and they called her a screamer. And I get her in the clinic. I'm adjusting her skull. We talked about this last week. I'm adjusting her skull, and she was screaming in the middle of it, not because she was fighting it, but she was trying to talk and say that was uncomfortable. And I'm adjusting her skull, and all of a sudden she started to relax. She stopped screaming. She got up from the chiropractic bench, and she walked over to the nurse in a normal voice and asked her about her stethoscope. How does it work? She had so much pressure on her brain, her language output from screaming. And we talked about that last week. You squeeze your knee, no big deal. You're okay. 20 minutes from now, you're going to be a little. Hey, you want to go tomorrow morning? I say, what are you still doing? 3 days from now, it's Chinese water torture. 6 months from now, you're necklace. You're in the loony bin because of that pressure on your brain. You backed up too far from the door.
Sorry.
Yep, there you are. So cranial nerves, and that also helps cause lisps. Who spells lisp?
Yeah, no, that's a hard word.
Crazy. But a lot of times that's a pinched cranial nerve. Go find a cranial sacral chiropractor, osteopath, somebody who works with the cranial sacral, the occipital atlantal place where the occiput of the skull lines up with the cervical.
And if that's weak pressure or some drop.
Have them work on that. Have them work on the 22 bones of the skull.
423.
23. Yep. You remember. You took notes.
I just remembered. I got it the right side of my brain.
Well, and this is going in your left ear.
Yeah, right now it's not the right side.
So we covered dyslexia. Everybody got that clear?
Yep.
Dyslexia is a brain organization problem. Right? There's a book called The Gift of Dyslexia. The only reason you can call it a gift is because the adaptive function that comes out of that is sometimes phenomenal. Phenomenal adaptive function. And if you fix the organization, you don't lose the adaptive function. Right? So
But it makes life a lot easier.
I've had young adults with autism that say, hey, this is a gift. My autism is a gift. And you want to fix that? And I'm going like, you're not going to lose your gift, buddy. You don't have to lose your gift. But let's get rid of the problems, the things that are causing social development, whatever. I mean,
right.
Every case of autism or Asperger's or Down syndrome or fetal alcohol syndrome or whatever is always different. And yet they're the same. There's a lot of similarities.
Right.
The last thing I want to cover before we go here is Tourette's syndrome. Tourette's syndrome. That's where they have the tics. A lot of Tourette's starts pretty close to vaccination. I don't need to harp on that so much. But you're starting to get tics because there's been a demyelination. If we talk about myelin in the brain, at segment 4 or 5, somewhere in there, and all this is on YouTube. And all this is on Facebook, so you go through the archives and you get them. Then, so Tourette's is where you've got a short in the brain, basically, or you got too much activity, so there's a weakness in the myelination of the brain, and that's where it shorts out, and that's where the tic shows up. Right? Or your blood sugar drops, and you're a little low on your fatty omega-3s, and you get this facial tic. Ooh, I hate those things. Have you ever gotten those?
I have.
It's a deficiency of something in that moment.
And it's coming out.
And it's quite possible you take some fish oil, swish it around in your mouth, and then swallow it. That should go away. A nervous tic. You're overexcited. You don't have enough gamma aminobenzoic acid, which is a neurosuppressant.
Mm-hmm.
They're overfiring. But when we're talking Tourette's, I want to address specifically the bad language Tourette's. It's not double possession. I've heard this, and the people cannot say, even a child, if they've heard that word, there's a language center of your brain. There's also a bad language center of your brain.
Sure.
That you know better than to use those words.
Hmm.
But if you have a short in the bad language center, those words come out. It's a tic. It's a Tourette syndrome.
Hmm.
And that's the bad language. That's where the short is in these bad words.
And they'll come out even though you're not doing it.
Even though they totally don't want it to. They say, I can't help this. I'm bleep. I can't help this. I'm sorry, but I bleep. You know.
Hmm.
And I've seen them.
Hmm.
And the main problem is they have a short. Tourette syndrome, almost invariably, is a shortage of essential fatty acids. And or a traumatic brain injury, a demyelination in a specific spot. Unfortunately, if you demyelinate, the little tiny difference between the heart and the lungs, at the very base of the brain, you have a sudden infant death. Because there's just this little tiny separation. When a baby's born, their breathing affects their heartbeat because they're so close together. As the brain myelinates, it goes away. We've checked that one of your kids.
Yeah.
So it should go away. So that indicates a myelination problem. So that was the last thing I wanted to cover was Tourette's in the bad language center. So this is session 13. This is it. This is all I was going to do. 13 segments.
So we sure appreciate all the effort you put in for communicating that information.
This doesn't mean that we can't do something else. Doesn't mean we can't do some follow-ups. Doesn't mean that we're not going to redo these.
Yeah.
Especially as I write these books as they come out. So these books will be for the parent. They will be like the parent's guidebook, the parent's handbook for child development, which is what these 13 segments have been. All right? So God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for coming. I hope you learned. I hope this gave you some hope. Hope is huge.
Yeah.
I hope this helps your child above all. It helps you as a parent too. All right? Well, God bless, and we're going to turn you off now. See you later.